Today on the Women Mind the Water Art of a Series podcast on womenmindthewater.com, I'm speaking with Rebecca Aguilar. Rebecca thought she'd landed her dream job until she realized that her heart wasn't engaged in the work. That changed when Rebecca joined a team of documentary filmmakers. Today, we're going to talk with Rebecca about making high-impact films. Films that have the potential to spark lasting change. Rebecca Aguilar is the latest guest on the Women Mind the Water Art of a Series podcast on womenmindthewater.com. The podcast engages artists in conversation about their work and explores their connection with water. Through their stories, Women Mind the Water hopes to inspire and encourage action to protect water and all the creatures that depend on it. I am talking with Rebecca Aguilar on the Women Mind the Water Art of a Series podcast. Rebecca works for a movie production company located at Skywalker Ranch, the fabled movie studio owned by George Lucas of Star Wars fame. Rebecca works with the Oscar-winning documentarian Louis Sahoyas. She is involved with post-production work on the film Speaking with Giants. It's a film about whale communication. Welcome, Rebecca. You currently work with movie visionaries who are teaching you how to shape impactful stories. So let's begin by talking about a life-changing event for you. When you were 16, you went on a backpacking trip in the Sierra Nevada mountains. How does an experience that you characterized as grueling instill a love for nature? Maybe you could start with describing the Sierra Nevadas and how different that experience was from what you were used to growing up near San Francisco.
Yeah, of course. I spent 2 weeks or less with 45 back on a trail called Evolution Valley in the Sierra Nevadas. It's a beautiful mountain range, and I was about 16 at the time, and like many teenagers, had no idea what I wanted to do with my life or who I was. And something that my dad had always taught me as a kid is doing meaningful work is so important in life. And you spend, most of your waking hours doing work. And if you don't do something that you love and something that doesn't have meaning, your life will lack a bit of purpose. And so I'd had that in the back of my mind. And when I went on this trip, I think humans' connection to nature, now that people live, whether it's in the suburbs or city, we've really lost our connection to nature. And that trip for me opened my eyes, to a world without cars, without exhaust, without buildings. And I just was with a small group, maybe, I don't know, 10 people. And every day, I would experience the changing landscapes because we hiked uphill mostly. And so it's called Evolution Valley because you see the evolution of the landscapes throughout the 2 weeks. And it really instilled in me a love of the natural world and also just, protecting this and having this very valuable experience at that age. I felt like so many people were missing out on being able to experience something so meaningful. And I knew in my heart after that trip, it kind of settled for me that working to fight and protect the last places on Earth and to protect the environment so we can have these beautiful places for future generations to connect to, that was really important to me.
In college, you majored in communication, and then you went to work in finance and later in sales. How did you get into the documentary film space?
Randomly, actually, at a bar in San Francisco. I want to say I was maybe 24 or 25, and I'd been working in sales. I'd quit my job, and I wasn't passionate about sales at all. And he said to me, you're at an interesting place in your life where you're capable and you can do a myriad of next steps or jobs. And he said, what you really should do, and it's an important exercise that now I realize everyone should do, so it's good advice for everyone. He said, you should look at what you want to be doing when you're 50 years old and what you want your life to look like. Everything down from how you want your spirituality to be? Do you want a family? Who do you want your partner to be? What work do you want to be doing? Down to granular things like how many days a week would you want to work out? What do you want your relationships in your life to look like? How many kids do you want? How much money do you want to be making every year? And he said, as you write that, nuanced list down, every time that you go look for another job, refer back to it. Is that going to take you one stepping stone closer to where you want to be when you're 45 or 50? And I did that process. And although I worked in finance and then sales, and then I worked in production, every single move that I made in the following 8 or 9 years was one that was going to get me closer to where I wanted to be. And I knew in my heart 10 years ago, I've always wanted to, I've had a passion for film and storytelling. And so the different positions that I've had have been in the more creative marketing production space in the last 10 years. But one of the elements that was missing for me was more of sole environmental purpose. And so 3.5 years ago, I'd been working in San Francisco for a long time. I realized I don't really care about making money at the end of the day. That's not going to make me happy. It's not going to be fulfilling. I knew that I really wanted to pivot exclusively to the nonprofit environmental space. And if I could find a space in the film industry, great. They're very few and far in between here in the Bay Area. But I emailed the Oceanic Preservation Society team, and they had just a general role in social media marketing. And although it was much, I hadn't done work at that lower level, if you want to call it that, for many, many years. However, to get your foot in the door in this space, especially coming from not having nonprofit experience prior, exclusive nonprofit experience, it's difficult. And so I took that job, and the last 3.5 years have been extremely eye-opening, and I've worn many, many hats at the organization since then, and I absolutely love it. So I think that taking the acceptance of much lower pay 3.5 years ago, it's paid off in dividends. I'm very happy with what I do, and I absolutely love my job, and my role has expanded quite a bit. So.
Well, that's wonderful that you love your job. And I have to say, as you were ticking off all the things that this person told you in the bar, it sounded like a great outline for some sort of rom-com, all the things that you need to do before you get to be 50. So you currently work with a production house that I hear you say is called Ocean Preservation Society, and it specializes in documentary filmmaking. What do you think is the biggest misconception that people have about making documentary films, particularly nature documentaries?
One of the bigger insights for me after working in this space is, documentary films are only made as quickly as the money comes in. So some projects can take 5 years, some projects can take 6 years, and some projects can take 10 years. And the hardest part to complete a film is really you're just beholden to how many funds you have and the support that you have financially around the film. And so I think a lot of people might take a look at a film and say, oh, that film probably wasn't that hard, or it was probably pretty cheap to make. Maybe they would see the production value as not being a higher expense. But the reality is a lot of these, films have varying budgets. But there's a direct correlation sometimes with how powerful a film can be and with the budget that you're working with. It's a very grueling and tiring process. And every single documentary and filmmaker that, I know, like, they do not do this for the money. They do it because they absolutely love this work. And yeah, I think that some people maybe from externally, they can say, oh, that probably wasn't that hard, or it didn't take that long, or it seemed pretty simple, or this or that. But these projects are very labor intensive, and they're very complicated, and there's so many stages to the work that needs to be done, and so much attention to detail and nuance that I don't think it's easy to see from the outside.
Right now you're working on a movie called Speaking with Giants. What's the film's main message, and why do you think Luis de Hoya chose this for a subject for a documentary film?
Yeah, so Louis approaches film from really changing people's minds, and ultimately people's behaviors, how they view the world, how they want to show up in the world. And for this film, Speaking with Giants, we're following a team of researchers that are looking to unlock the language and communication of whales. And with that, if you can bring the audiences along, and if you can, to a degree, if you can prove that whales have their own language, which scientists believe that they do, you can extend that understanding to any animal. And so, the beauty of a film like this is you can use whales as the vehicle to open a understanding of everyone to humanize species in a certain way. And I think that humans have the natural, tendency to view animals as a product, not as individuals. That's why so many humans obviously are meat eaters, and there's this separation between how people might view their own relationship with animals and maybe their own actions that they might take in their lives. And so I think with a film like this, we'd want to deepen the understanding of all animals being their own individuals with hearts, with souls, with feelings. And you can do that through, showcasing that they have their own alphabets, that these, calves are speaking to their mothers. And now that we can understand what they're saying, that brings a level of relation, I think, to humans and whales in general that we haven't had in the past.
Why do you describe him as a visionary documentarian?
Louis makes films that makes you feel something. You resonate with the characters on screen, you resonate with the message, and his films are very entertaining. Entertainment is at the forefront of what he does. And when you sit down after a long day at work on your couch and you want to turn on the TV, you want to feel something, right? Or maybe you just want to tune out or whatever that might be. But if you can make a film that is, inspiring, uplifting, that makes you feel something in your heart, that, might not just purely give you information and maybe shame you in a certain way about your choices, or make you feel bad in a certain way, I think that there's Louis is a visionary in that he can inspire and entertain and educate all at the same time. And that's a rare quality to have.
And how are you engaged in this work to get Speaking with Giants produced?
I wear a lot of hats. I help out with our impact campaigns on films. We don't have an impact campaign with every documentary we release, but I would say at a higher altitude, I try and help out with just general impact of marketing, of awareness around our films and our projects, of getting people kind of involved. And for this film specifically, we're actually in pre-production of it. So we're currently in the fundraising stage mostly. And all of our projects move forward as the funding comes in. And so for this film, I've just been helping with trying to create documents and communications to help people get on board supporting the film financially.
What do you expect the film Speaking with Giants, what do you expect its impact to be?
I mean, I think if everyone watched a film like this, people would recognize sentient beings as so much more human and similar to humans, than they've ever seen in any way. I think that a film like this can generate a level of awareness and can and push for more conservation efforts around not only whales, but all species. People will really be able to deepen their connection to whether it's their dog or their cat or an owl that they see, once we can recognize that all these species have their own languages and they're actually saying things to one another. And wow, if we can even understand what one species is saying back and forth to members of its other that species, I think that's just such a beautiful, beautiful thing to bring to the world. So massive awareness would be, and love for all other species. That would be our greatest impact.
That would be a great impact.
Yeah.
Rebecca, at the end of every podcast, I ask guests to offer advice to my listeners on how they can make a difference. What advice do you have for people who haven't found what it is they want to do, but sincerely want to make a difference?
I think it always starts with understanding yourself. And if you can understand yourself and what you're passionate about, I think that whether it's currently in your life or seeing it at, as a juncture that you might meet later in your life, is understanding what you really care about and why, and how are you, is that something that you would see, baking into your career and doing something meaningful? And there's many ways that you can achieve that. Many people have jobs that allow them to do what they're passionate about, whether it's volunteering or being involved in some way or something that you're passionate about on the side. It doesn't have to mean that you make your career and into doing your life's passion. However, I would, push and advise people that, gosh, like at the end of the day, if there's a way that you can make something happen in your life and you can make a career out of what you're passionate for, then you really should. And many times in my life, I've had to Airbnb in my apartment, or I've had to, I've had to do things to be able to do the work that I do, have multiple jobs or this or that. And it's hard, but it's so worth it at the end to really try and prioritize doing what you love and staying centered in what you love. So, and then that really starts with understanding yourself and understanding what matters to you in this life and chasing that. Because life is short, and if you just focus on the financial aspects, I feel it leaves many people with empty hands emotionally at the end of the day and towards the end of their lives. So don't give up.
Thank you very much. That's very profound advice, and something for us all to think about.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you for being on the Women Mind the Water Art of This Series podcast. It seems like you found your path, and I wish you and the film Speaking with Giants much success.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pam. It was great to meet you.
And I'd like my listeners to know that I've been speaking with Rebecca Aguilar, an impact director working with Luis Sahoyas to make impactful films, documentary films. Rebecca is the latest guest on the Women Mind the Water Art of This Series podcast. The series can be viewed on womenmindthewater.com and YouTube. A transcript is available on womenmindthewater.com, and an audio version can be listened to on iTunes and Spotify. Women Mind the Water is grateful to Jane Rice for the use of her song, Women of Water. All rights for the Women Mind the Water name and logo belong to Pam Ferris Olson. This is Pam Ferris Olson.